Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Sorry, that startled a few people there. I hope you can you hear me at the back? Believe it or not, the person that should be sitting here is Ahmed Al-Amri. Is he on his way? Okay, so just temporarily, I'm Ahmed Al-Amri, but I'm actually Tony Mullican. Ahmed was called away to meet Hillary Clinton. And when you get a call from Hillary Clinton, you just say yes. So hopefully he's invited Hillary Clinton to join him at Sharjah for the Sharjah International Book Fair. And the reason that I should just start the process is that Sharjah, as an international book fair, is now number 4 in the book fair calendar, if you like. So that the first one would be Frankfurt Book Fair, then London Book Fair, and then this very august book fair here, Book Expo, and then Sharjah. So it shows you the level of which Sharjah has risen within the publishing calendar, if you like. In translation, what they have tried to do at Sharjah is introduce a translation grant, and this grant is to get Arabic to English, English to Arabic, or any language to any language. And I will have to get a little bit of agreement from the front here, but I think they have a total grant of $300,000 every year to help in translation. And this has proved to be hugely successful. And just as a little advert, there are some forms here which my colleagues Salim and Mohammed have brought with them. And those are expression of interest forms that you can fill in if you have a title that you think should be translated. Just a little bit of sort of ground rules on that translation. This is a deal that is done in Sharjah. So you need to be at the Sharjah Book Fair, and if that deal is done in Sharjah, then you can apply for that grant. And at the moment, we have had a total of how many, Salim? Okay, so since this started, which was the year before last, we have 150 books in translation thanks to the grant. Just again, a few stats that may appeal to you. The Sharjah International Book Fair has 1 million visitors during its 10 days. And last year, the revenue, that's books purchased across the stands like there are here, was $43 million. So I think that might give you some idea that this is big business as well as literature. And His Highness, Sheikh Al-Qasimi, sorry, I've lost volume for a second. Thank you. Sheikh Al-Qasimi, he is driven by improving literacy within not only Sharjah, which is the cultural capital, but across the UAE. On that note, hot from Hillary Clinton, I think a round of applause for Ahmed Al-Amri, director of the Sharjah Book Fair.
My name is Ahmed Al-Amri. I'm the director of Sharjah International Book Fair. Sharjah Book Fair came by the idea of His Highness, the ruler of Sharjah, Sheikh Dr. Sultan Muhammad Al-Qasimi, 33 years ago. This book fair was to promote literature, to promote reading among the environment of the United Arab Emirates. In the last 5 years ago, we introduced our translation grant. This grant is to make the book fair more professional, to do exchanging of cultural among countries and different cultures between us and the other, and to understand the other, understand the other. By providing a translation grant, we are offering around $300,000 US. Those $300,000 US is divided to. We are giving to general books around $4,000 US and $1,500 to children books. This translation grant is supporting, first of all, the international translators. It helps also the Arab world to understand the difference between them and the different languages. We successfully printed 150 books from different languages to different languages. Last year, we achieved 75 books from Arabic to different languages. These things that we are very proud of, and those are some of the success stories we did. Emma?
Good afternoon. My name's Emma House and I work for the UK Publishers Association. I've been going to the Sharjah Book Fair now for 9 years and have seen it grow year on year in terms of its appeal to the general public, but very much from a professional basis. So from the start of the professional program, which invites international editors and rights professionals to the book fair for a 3-day program to take part in matchmaking events and to hear different seminars about the literature and the publishing world in the Middle East. And that has grown year on year. At the moment, I am helping to promote the Sharjah Book Fair to the UK publishing audience to encourage them to sign up to be invited to the professional program.
Good afternoon. I'm Judith Kerr, the president and publisher of the Atria Publishing Group, a division of Simon & Schuster, and my other colleagues were the ones who were responsible for the delay because Simon & Schuster are publishing Hillary Clinton's book. So we win, we win. I was very fortunate enough to be invited to the Sharjah Book Festival last year, and I went for the first time, and it was an amazing experience. And I have to say, when you're living and working in the United States, you often get very myopic about where the readers are, what's happening in the world. So it's a very good idea to sort of travel outside of your own boundaries and therefore outside your own comfort zones, and to see that the world doesn't always face west, and that there's a whole other universe of people who are readers and writers and thinkers and philosophers who you can interact with in this wonderfully well-organized and hospitable environment.
Okay. Now we'll go to the questions. Judith, why did you attend SIBF and what many outcome for you from that?
So that was my first experience of going to Sharjah, and I was amazed by how immediate the reaction is between the book and the reader and the bookseller. For 10 days, you see the booksellers walking around the stalls with big trolleys, buying their books for the next year to take home to their countries. And immediately, you start to see what's going to be popular and what's not going to be popular. It was very useful for me because we had 2 days of what they call speed dating, I guess, where the organization of many other publishers from all over the world, including the European and the English contingents as well. And we were luckily enough, we were able to sell some rights to some of our books to the Egyptian publishers to have them translated into Arabic thanks to the translation grants. And that never would have happened if I wasn't there. And my author was thrilled. His book is now, which is a book about science, is now going to be published in many other countries as a result of that. So I'm always looking to understand the world a little bit better so I can be a good handmaiden to my authors and to their books, and also to bring some of those stories back into the United States.
Emma, what the feedback you have received from UK publisher and agent who have attended Sharjah Book Fair?
Many have attended now over the last 3 years, and they always come back saying how useful it was to have a concentrated period of networking with like-minded people. So there are normally about 100 to 150 people at the professional program from all over the world, all interested in buying and selling translation rights. And to have that time where you're not rushing from appointments every half an hour to every half an hour as you do at other book fairs, there's a lot more time to network and discuss business in a more relaxed environment. They also found that they meet people that they would never have met elsewhere. I think, as Judith rightly said, it is an opportunity to really sit down and get to know people that you either never thought existed or wouldn't have time to meet at other book fairs. They also found that the translation grant came in very useful. Paying for translation is often a big barrier to these books getting into different languages, and every little penny helps on this. The other thing I think they felt was again, getting to know another culture, so being immersed in a culture for a few days, being able to meet people not only from the United Arab Emirates, but from all over the Middle East. So Arab publishers coming in from Lebanon, from Egypt, from Saudi Arabia, you really get to understand the breadth of the publishing industry, all in the Arabic language.
So what did you learn, Judith, from doing business in Arab?
One of the things that I think is very important for publishing in the modern world is to be completely aware of the fact that it's a global market we're dealing with. With the development of digital publishing, which is coming to many different languages in many different countries, it's important to have these relationships and these networks to be able to represent the ideas that your publishing company is putting forward, and also to know which ones are not going to travel. There are certain kind of subjects or certain kinds of ways of life that you think, well, why can't I sell my best-selling fiction author who writes about women's issues in Manhattan? Why can't I sell that to 55 countries? Well, the fact is that people live a completely different life and are interested in different things, and it's the same reason why the Manhattanite is probably less likely to come across the other women's stories from around the world, although we would like to change that.
And Emma, what do you think? Same question about the general tips about doing business. What you have learned about doing business in Arab world?
I think one of the key things is to be flexible. Business is done very differently in the Arab world. Business is done very differently in the Arab world. There's often difficulties in author royalty statements. There's very small print runs, and you have to be adaptable to this. You have to just find a way to say, okay, if I'm not going to get royalty statements on a quarterly basis, I'll have them all up front, for example. As I said, print runs are very small, and the distribution network in the Middle East is not so well developed, and the publishers very much rely on these public book fairs to sell their books to the public. Bookshops that sell books in Arabic, especially in the Gulf area, are reasonably few and far between. So I think one of the best tips I would give anyone doing business out there is to be flexible. Also, the relationship building. Publishing, as we know, is a very relationship-based industry, but I think it's never more true when it comes to dealing with the Arab publishers and working out which books would sit best with which publisher, and which books would work well in the various countries throughout the Middle East. So being very patient, building the relationships, being flexible, and taking the time to really get to understand the nature of the business and the culture.
I was asked, are there any tips? One of the things is to be really open to other cultures, to be really engaged and immersed in the experience that you're going to receive there, and that you meet lots of different people. So I think you have to always go with an open mind and with the opportunity to sort of meet many people who you may not come across in the rest of your life, and to understand that at the core that the Sharjah Festival is doing is putting readers and authors and writers together in many, many different languages, which is what we are all about.
Okay, my other question is why those translation grant is very important, like the Sharjah Book Fair is presenting and any other book fair. What's the importance of those translation grants for both of you?
Well, what was very important about the translation grant was the fact that you knew that you may not be familiar with that publishing house, but because you were dealing with them for the first time in the auspices of the festival, and because the festival was guaranteeing the translation grant, you knew that it was a correct and proper deal that you were putting together. And it gave it an authenticity and an immediacy which allowed you to do business for the first time with many people.
Emma?
I think the translation grant really does help promote the books as well. So when the books are published, there is a line in the book that says it's published with the authenticity and the support of the Sharjah Book Fair translation grant. And I think that gives it a brand that's recognized, especially throughout the Middle East. I think also this is, as I said earlier, it's an opportunity that these people may never come together, and these books may never get translated if these programs don't exist, especially with the assistance of the grants.
what type of publisher should apply to the translation grant?
Mostly non-fiction publishers, science, spirituality, history, I think. But what's really interesting, what was very interesting for me at the festival, was how actively the school children are involved with it, and what a vigorous and emerging children's book market is there, particularly in non-fiction. And I was also intrigued to see the Library Association of the United States represented well there, and they're working very closely with the Sheikh of Bador on various things. So anybody who focuses on children's education and the other subjects I discussed.
Same question, Emma.
One tip that I forgot to mention, actually, and that is really to pay attention to the prizes that are in the Middle East. There are some very important book prizes that recognize Arab literature and children's books. So the Sharjah Best Book Prizes, the Etisalat Prize for Children's Literature, the Arab Booker Prize. There's a lot of really good book prizes that recognize excellence in Arabic literature, particularly if you're looking to translate them into English or other languages. So that's a tip I would recommend. And also go into the bookstores themselves, particularly if you're in Sharjah and the other Emirates, is to walk around the bookshops and see what's being sold, see what people are picking up and reading. So those are two tips that I wanted to just throw in there that I forgot to mention earlier. In terms of the professional program, though, I do think anyone that has a passion for and an interest in translating books to and from other languages, especially if you're interested, as I said, in Arabic fiction or Arabic children's novels and want to bring those to the rest of the world, that's particularly of interest, I think, to the professional program.
I think in the end of our session I would like to thank Judith and Emma House for their to be today and to free their time to come to do the presentation about Sharjah Translation Grant. And anyone of you are interested in the translation grant, or you're interested in to come to our professional program, our stand is behind you here, Sharjah Department of Culture and Information. You can fill up the form of the interest, and we'll be contacting you soon with all the information you need about the Sharjah Book Fair and the translation grant. Thank you, everybody, for coming.